Halloween. Ooh. This is Phil Chenevert with Why Do We Say That? I can't find my. Oh, there it is. Halloween. Today is October the 2nd, 2022, and I thought I'd better do something on Halloween since it's sort of apropos. Um, Halloween is a holiday, a celebration that we have here here, probably all over the world or in a lot of places of the world. It's fairly similar. You got your pumpkins, and you got your ghosts, and you got your dressing up, and you got people, little kids usually, going around from house to house saying they don't know what to say anymore. They don't say trick or treat. They forgot that. They'll say, "Give me something." So you put candy in their bucket, and they go to the next house. It's come a long way, a long, long way. Where is it? Oh, there it is. I keep losing my camera. Sorry. Um, I moved. I'm sitting down. I'm tired. So Halloween. This festival, celebration, fear thing goes back thousands of years. Um, there was a race, a group of people called the Celts. Um, they inhabited like England, Ireland, northern France, all up in there several thousands of years ago. And they had their own celebration. Their New Year started on like November the 1st. And the idea was that the harvest is in. Whatever we got, we got. Now is the cold freeze. Death is coming along. We're going to go through months of terrible stuff. So they marked the end of that thing with a celebration. They called it I think of the Samhain. It's spelled Samhain, but it's pronounced Samhain. So it was a celebration. That was their New Year celebration in a way. Now, so it marks the end of the summer, beginning of the dark, cold wintertime, a time when a lot of deaths would happen. So the Celts believed that on the night before that New Year, the boundary between the living and the dead was blurred, and that the dead spirits could come back. So what they did was the druids, their priests, the Celtic priests, they would have big bonfires, and they would be able to communicate with these spirits. Now, as we'll cover when I talk about superstitions, we we are at the mercy, or they were at the mercy, we still are, of what's happening. The weather, we don't know. Drought could happen, nothing. We don't know what's going to happen. It's scary, very scary. So they wanted to know what's going to happen in the future. And so they could communicate and kind of pass on things that were um, predictions about the future. And, they were entirely dependent upon what's going to happen. I mean, we don't know. So it would be some comfort for them if they could say, well, this is going to be a short winter. Yeah, yeah, okay. And the sun's going to be bright again in fairly soon. So the Druids would have these big bonfires where all the people would gather, and they would offer these sacrifices. Now, one of the traditions was that they would put out the hearth fire, meaning in their little horse, which they probably kept burning a lot all the time. They would put that out, and these big bonfires, sacred stuff, where they would make sacrifices, maybe of animals or plants. This would be a special time. And the Druids, of course, wore costumes. They would wear like animal heads. You've probably seen these pictures of the Druids with the deer and the antlers and the skins on them. They would wear these to attempt to tell fortunes and to communicate with the dead spirits. Now, when the celebration was over, the people would take some of the fire and go back and relight their homes, which they had extinguished. Okay, so from the sacred bonfire. Now, this was a thing, but then the Romans came along, and for about 400 years, the Romans basically conquered all of northern France and England, well, part of England, and Ireland, I think. I'm not sure about Ireland, but anyway, the Romans came over, and they were there for 300 to 400 years. So, but the Romans kind of sucked up some of their culture and gave them some of their culture. It kind of mingled. Yeah, the Romans had two um, festivals. which were combined with the original Soin or Sondheim. That's a author. I mean, he writes music, right? Music. Okay, never mind. So the first the Romans had was Feralia. Uh, this was a day in late October. The Romans commemorated the passing of the dead. Now the second festival they had was Pomona, which was done in March, but they moved it to. She was the Roman goddess of fruit trees and apples and all that stuff. And by the way, they combined it with this celebration back in October, end of October, and this is the bobbing for apples. You may have heard about that. When I was young, we used to go to Halloween parties. We did. We enjoyed that type of stuff. And I can remember had a big bucket and they have apples. You're supposed to grab it with your teeth. I was never successful, but I got very wet. I think part of the fun of that was just watching people stick their head in water and laughing at them. Anyway, I don't think we do that anymore. I'll have to ask the young people. The young people. Anyway, so that kind of explains where that came from. But then, so the Romans combined the Feralia, which I'm not going to talk about right now, is an interesting ceremony, and Pomona. Both of them, they kind of linked this with this Celtic celebration, and the people enjoyed that. But then Christianity was coming in, and by the year 4, 5, 600, in 600, Pope Boniface IV dedicated the Pantheon in Rome to all of the Christian martyrs, all the martyrs that had been killed there. And he designated November the 2nd. And then they changed that later on to say any Christian saint, anybody that's dead that's in heaven would be celebrated on November the 2nd. And they call that All Souls Day. November the 1st was All Saints Day. Okay, but so celebrations in England kept them Celtic commemorations. They kept the same things, complete with the bonfires and the masquerades and the dressing up and things like that. Pope Gregory moved it from May to November. That's it. All Martyrs Day, they moved it to November and changed it to All Saints and All Souls. Yeah, you see, it all comes together, folks, over the centuries. Now, this was back in the 7th century, 8th century. Now, by the 9th century, Christianity had spread into the Celtic lands where it gradually, once again, it blended with the older rites, older pagan rites. And in the year about 1000, the church designated November 2nd as All Souls Day. I got that a little messed up, but it's still November 1st, All Saints Day, which is all the people who have died and are in heaven. Celebrate that. And then All Souls Day, the next day, which was in everybody, honoring all the dead. But like I said, in England especially, they kept a lot of the original Samhain or Celtic traditions, and they kind of blended them together. You know, we humans, we like to keep our old stuff. So during these things, the poor people would visit the wealthier families, and they would receive like little gifts, not gifts, pastries. They were called soul cakes. Okay, now think about that. What would happen was you say, I'm going to pray for your father who passed away, or your grandfather. And it was sort of like I'll pray for them. Well, here's a little special cake I made for you. See, it's called all soul cakes. Interesting, right? And then this was known as souling, and the children picked this up, and they would start going just from door to door, asking for gifts of food, which is fun. Sometimes they'd give them ale or whatever they had, maybe money. Now in Scotland and Ireland, the young people took part in a tradition called guising, dressing up in a costume. They would love that. Where they would go from door to door. You can see the traditions that have started from thousands of years ago carried on. They wouldn't, when they would dress up, they wouldn't say, I'm going to pray for the soul. They would do a little song, a dance, recite a poem, and then they would hopefully get something from that. They'll get some nuts or fruits or whatever. So, pardon me. Now, this is what's happening. Now we come up to colonial England. Colonial England had some pretty rigid Puritan beliefs, and they didn't go for all that stuff. But Maryland and the southern colonies, they loved it. They kept the same thing, and a lot of these were kept on. So today, like well, I can go on. We had the Irish famine, and lots of Irishmen came up with all their traditions. This is why we have this strange mingling of scary stuff and holy stuff, dressing up, going from door to door. Nowadays, like I said, I can't hardly get a kid come to my door and say trick or treat. It's just like they just hold the bucket. They don't know. They don't. And thank God they don't know, because when I was a kid, we did use play tricks on people. It wasn't very nice. So um, there's a lot of interesting things around Halloween, but what it's come to today is a huge commercial success. We sell tremendous amounts of stuff. Uh, Dressing up, the people are putting the decorations out already. Uh, it's interesting. So, oh, I didn't mention the name. Halloween means All Hallows Eve, because remember the feast day was Hallow. All Hallows are all holy, and then the eve of that would be All Holy's Eve, All Halloween, Halloween, Hallows Eve. That's where the word actually comes from. I'm way too long, but I get too excited. I love Halloween because I get to give out fun things. So, have fun, enjoy yourself, be safe. Or maybe not be safe. Take a chance. Do something. Do something dangerous. Oh, Lou.